I like it. Gentlemen, starting to show off with an icebreaker. What's something you've done recently for your mental health that you would have never done 10 years ago? I'll start it off. Reading. Reading. Slash and or audio books. Back in the day, man, you couldn't pay me to read a book. The only time I read was when I had to, and that was like for a course or for promotion or something like that. When it came to just reading something because it was edifying, because it was for my benefit, or just growing, I wasn't there. But now, when I work out 9 times out of 10, that's what I'm doing. I am listening to an audio book or something that's edifying or uplifting, something that I can learn from and something that I can grow from. So for me, it's just learning and getting into the books a little bit more. It's something I would never have done because honestly, for me, that's good for my mental health because now um when I was younger, I used to always kind of look at myself as like the dumb kid, as like the stupid kid, right? Because when I was in high school, I got C's and D's, right? So it wasn't until a few years ago where I stopped calling myself a CD student. I got 3 degrees and associates, a bachelor's, and a master's. And my associates, I ended up with a 3.8, no, a 3.6. My bachelor's was a 3.4, and my master's was a 3.2. So I am no longer that CD student. But it wasn't until recently that I changed my mindset when it came to that. So again, for me, that helped my mental health because I no longer see myself as that. And I don't know, man, but that was for me, reading and taking in information.
I would say for me, I see reading and I raise you prayer and meditation. That was something, especially in for those of you who participate in Bible study. I kind of told the story before, like being younger, it's like no one really sat little boys down and taught them how to pray. No one, you didn't really see a whole lot of men praying. Like, yeah, you go to church, you see the deacons and the elders up in there praying, and it always led into some song that started from some hum from way in the corner of the church. But when you start talking about praying and meditating, that wasn't something that I would have done 10 years ago. But over the years, having a better understanding of what it is and how it actually helps and benefits you, then yeah, that's that thing now for me.
Yeah, I love both. And for me, I think I used to look at people that walked as, oh, look at them old people. Then now the mirror telling me that I'm old. So now when I'm walking, it's like I walk and I'm with nature, I'm taking in the sun, or I just sit out back, but I'm listening to something that's gonna motivate me to do better. Or like you, I'm listening to audio books and things of that nature, but I'm always trying to stimulate my mind to do something better, be better than where I am right now. So I think just doing those things, learning how to sit still, learning how like, dude, just sit out in my on my back porch and just realize that, man, I do have an awesome guy. So yeah.
I'm I work in a high school and I see students who talk or struggle with mental health already at an early age. I see little girls and I see little boys. The data shows that black men are 4 times more likely to die by suicide than black women. When we're talking about mental health, and specifically according to the title, we're talking about black men, and for whatever reason, this is the case. Do either one of you guys want to take a jab at why you think this may be the case?
Well, I think that, as Coach alluded to earlier, no one ever taught us how to decompress, how to, other than putting your fists or your hands on somebody or doing something physical of that nature, relieving stress. No one taught you how, nor did they say it was okay for you to release some things. It's okay for you to talk about it. It's okay for you to cry. It's okay for you to do these things and not just bottle it up until it explodes. And then the next thing you know, you doing something drastic.
Yep, I definitely agree. And to add to that, I think um, another thing is for a group to be identified by kind of like what you do, right? Work and all that other great stuff. And again, you guys heard me say this before. Being raised with the understanding that you have to be twice as smart, you have to work twice as hard. Well, it's like that definitely is on the shoulder of men for the most part. And at the end of the day, you're only valued based on what you do and what you bring home. So at the end of the day, I don't have time to be in my feelings. I don't have time to express myself. Growing up, nobody really cared anyway. If you start crying, you would tell us to stop crying, right? So little boys didn't get the cry. Little boys had to just deal with it, things of that nature. And so when we start looking at these things ideally that can lead to potential suicide. There was a conversation. If you guys haven't heard it, make sure you go back and listen to Zach Tidwell's story. Zach is a Marine vet, and he actually attempted, followed through with it, and he wasn't successful, but he has to live with the repercussions of that decision moving forward. And one of the things that he shared is that nobody really cared in so many terms about how he felt. And he also felt that to express that, he would be looked at as less than a man. He used a very different terminology, but you got to go listen to it to hear what he said. But that holds true across the board because at the end of the day, it's like no one ever really raised you to be expressive of how you feel and things of that nature. So when either you get to the point in your life where you go seek counseling, and you get the opportunity to express, and it's being expressed in that arena, that look, this is a space where you can tell us what's going on, what you're thinking, and how you're really feeling, and how it's affecting you, not just from a relationship standpoint but from a performance standpoint. So when you look at all of these things combined, everything that Roland said, everything that I said, everything that you're about to say, and everything that everybody else has probably already said in the chat and out in the YouTuber sphere, like all of those things hold to be true. And that's not taking anything away from anyone else. But again, for a group that has not been ushered into expressing themselves, finding a way to do that can be difficult in a world that really tells you over and over and over and over again, they don't really care how you feel. They only care about what you do.
I appreciate both you guys' perspective. When I when I was looking at this and when I was looking at this information, it was something that I don't see, So I don't see, like, from my experience and what I've seen in the black community, I don't see black men committing suicide. Now, like I said, I'm probably totally wrong. According to the data, I am wrong. But I was just saying, when I saw this, um, it was eye opening because it's not something that I normally see or I've heard about in the community. I heard it's like, a lot of us in the black community are, have Christian backgrounds and Christian roots and stuff like this. And, you know, a lot of us don't believe in that. We feel like, if we die, if we commit suicide, then that's it. What I mean? We go to hell. So, um, like I said, in my experience, the question jumped out to me just mainly because it's something that I hadn't seen. It was just eye opening.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm sorry.
Now go ahead.
No, I'm because I think this is one of those things that we can, and this is not going against anything you said, but I think this is one of those things that we can't just limit it to just what I see, right?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
because I only see a very small piece of reality, and my perspective of reality isn't the total of it. Like even in those numbers, it's like it says 1 in 4. So for every one of them, 4 of us, right? Um, I think that is alarming. I unfortunately had that experience. I've seen a friend of mine when I was younger. He committed suicide. Just things of that nature, and so when we look at stuff like this, even though a lot of times, the data, even though, and I'm using it in this format, and I know you wasn't saying this. A lot of times we look at the data and you say, "Oh, that doesn't affect me." Sure, it does. It absolutely does. It affects you just by simply being a part of the group. right? Because you are part of the group. Like all of us have sons, right? You got boys, you got sons. Okay, yeah. So all of us
Agree.
have sons. So I think it's important, even though it may not have been in our purview, it's also important enough for us to have conversations like that with them so that they can understand. You don't have to walk around and become a ticking time bomb. You can come and talk to me about anything under the sun. It doesn't matter what it is. And just having that conversation just initially should be enough to open the door. And I don't think just having it once, right? You want to have that conversation multiple times so that they know that they can come and talk with you about anything.
And you mentioned it in the beginning, and I want to highlight something that you said, and that is that that's a bubble. This is my small, very small piece of little crumb of the pie of the world of the universe. You know what I mean? And I think, where I'm at in my life right now, and I'm okay, and I understand that this is just my life, what I've experienced in my 49 years. There are a lot of different states and spaces that I have never been in. There are
Yeah.
cities and regions that I know nothing about and don't care to know anything about. You know what I'm saying? And I think that the world itself would be a lot better if we understood that we really only know a small amount. And then a lot of our experiences are just based off of what happens in our region or within our circle. And it doesn't necessarily extrapolate out to everybody and everything else that's going on in the world. Um, here's another data point. We ain't gonna dwell on it or nothing, but despite 20%, 21% of Black Americans experiencing mental health issues, only 39% receive treatment, highlighting a significant gap in mental health service utilization. So just right there, we've always heard that talk about people that don't want to go to mental health, that people there it's taboo. you know I don't need to go. What I need to go. What they gonna tell me about? They don't know nothing about my life. And I understand all of those, but they're not there to know all about your life. They're there to try to help you get through whatever you're going through and to give you skills and techniques that will help you get through um, whatever you're going through. And everybody don't believe on it. If you don't believe in therapy, then I don't have a problem with it. Don't go. You know what I mean? But I think for a lot of people, it can be helpful. And I think that it may not always be a therapist. I think that sometimes Big Mom and them is okay, but I think that Big Mom and them need to give sound, wise counsel when they do those things, not just just not just put some butter on it. You know what I'm saying? So um I ain't gonna dwell too much on that, but here's the first question, man. Why does a conversation like this matter to you, gentlemen?
I think a conversation like this matters to me because I know where I've been in life. Because growing up in a household, I was in a household full of women. Because my cousin, my older cousin was, the kids, and then no male structure in the house. So when you're told at a young age, you're the man of the house, don't know anything about responsibility or anything like that, but in your head you are responsible. So that's placed on you, and then other things are placed on you at a young age. And when you see what's going on I grew up in the inner city, so when you see the numbing agents that come at you, whether it be drugs or whether it be alcohol or whatever it is, you see all these things and you see what's going on. And I'm from what we used to love to say, hey, it's the murder capital of America. And you experience things not realizing that everything that you're experiencing is pulling on you and tearing and pulling a little thread a little more. And as you go through these things, you're thinking that you're tough, but what you are is you're building up walls. And then later on in life, you see, man, I got some walls that it don't work when I'm trying to parent. It don't work when I'm trying to mentor. These walls are built up supposedly to keep people out, but it also keeps me in. It keeps my feelings in. So this conversation is one that needs to be heard because people are hurting and don't know how to release that pain.
Yeah, conversations like this matter. Kind of like what I said previously. For us with sons, having those conversations with those young men, helping them to understand that you have an outlet, you have a place to vent. Well, what about those young kids, young teenage boys who don't necessarily have a father in the house, right? Being able to see stuff like this, having three grown men, three gray bearded men sitting here having this conversation about being able to be open and transparent and talk about what's going on in your life. I think that's one of the main reasons why conversations like this matter. I also believe inherently that we need to, and I think it was Sister Nadella who made mention of this earlier, that we need to normalize conversations like this. You need to make, because like you mentioned earlier, like when we were younger, it was taboo. Going to therapy and all that. That's taboo. Like you never would look at or consider suicide. And on top of that, the idea of the notion behind it is if you're having thoughts of that nature, you're weak. Well, none of that stuff is true, right? So being able to dispel all kind of myths that exist out there around mental health, being able to help young men be able to talk about what's going on with them from the standpoint of understanding that they need help, so go get the help. And I would say it like this, and I'm gonna say it differently. For those people who don't believe in it, I would say this: think hard about what you believe. Challenge the assumption that you have that says, I don't believe in therapy. Because here's what I would say: do you believe in a football coach to play football? Do you believe in a basketball coach to play basketball? Do you believe in a weightlifting coach to lift weights? So if you believe that they're there for a particular reason, then there are also people who are there for your mental health. And here's the other side about it: a lot of the relating aspects when it comes down to mental health, we need to see Black men in our community who are actually in those positions to help. I want to talk to somebody who can relate to my experience. And I point you out because you're a school counselor. So for me as a kid walking through the halls, seeing a Mr. Martin, I would have been probably more apt to come knock on your door and say, Mr. Martin, can I talk to you? As opposed to going to see somebody else. And again, this is not making saying that anybody else does not have the knowledge. It's not saying that they're not good at what they do, but there's a thing to consider when it comes down to being able to relate to your experiences. Again, I always say our experiences are our experiences. It's not the complete aspect of what reality is, and sometimes we need people to help us to understand that.
I'm actually one of one in my entire county. I think it's 40 something or 50 something schools. I'm the only black male school counselor in my entire county. So um it is what it is. Um why did this conversation like this? Why does a conversation like this matter to me? Because I've been on both sides of this. I've been in the place of my life where mental health was bad, and I've been in the place of my life where mental health has been really good. And also understand that there could be a time in my life to whereas my mental health could be challenged, because I may go through some things. And that's why I think that it's important that we do things to build our mental health. But some of the things that makes it important, the reason why this conversation matters to me is because who whoever watches this, there may be someone who watches this who may be struggling with their mental health, right? And this conversation could be just what they need in order to not pull a trigger. Knowing that there is somebody out there who actually cares, that there is help out there, that there is somebody out there who does not want them to be dealing with their mental health issues. Because I have three sons and I don't want them to have to deal with some of the mental health things that I went through. Um, because there are people who are in this chat right now who may need a conversation like this because they may have be dealing with this. And yes, we are specifically talking about black males tonight, but this can be applied to anybody. You know what I mean? Anybody who may be struggling with any type of mental health. Because a lot of times there are people sitting around here struggling with mental health issues and they're not talking to anybody. They don't have anybody to talk to. They don't know who to talk to. They don't know who they can trust. You know, when you're dealing with the stuff, you don't know who you can talk to and have a conversation with. You don't know while you're in your own home and you're having a conversation who's listening, who's wanting to be in your conversation. You know, so I think that there are some people out there who want to literally break the silence and want to be able to come out there and say what's on their mind and have a conversation with somebody about something that is bothering them and the reason why their mental health is in the dumps right now and they just don't know who and where to go to. So if anything else, you can tune in here every Friday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we hope that, you know, conversations like this or anything that you hear over here can be beneficial to you. I don't know. I think that's all I got to say about that in my Forrest Gump boy.
Let me add one other piece because I mean, laser spot on. I love what you just said, but I also want to say it this way as well. If you are a mother who is raising a boy child, um, this is helpful for you to hear as well. Because at the end of the day, I'm assuming, and I don't know from experience, I'm assuming part of the struggle is, especially if his father's not is not in his life, part of the struggle is like, what can I give him that's going to help him, right? I know what to give a young girl, but what can I give a young boy? Well, conversations like this can help. So at the least, just sit them in front of the computer screen, or sit them in front of the TV, and have them listen to these fine men talk, because I think a lot of that will help to bridge the gap of an absentee father. And again, you don't know what's going on in the minds of that young man when his father's not around, when he can't talk to his father, when there's some things that he want to get a male perspective on, and the only male perspective he can get is your brother. You know what I'm saying? And your brother may not necessarily be the best person to talk to him. Like those are some of the things that we're talking about here. So you have to understand that when it comes down to this mental health thing, and I'm not saying mental health isn't important to women, that's not what I'm saying at all. But for men, especially the pressures that are placed on them, especially listening to everything that's going on out in society, because social media does not make it easy. You need to like put them in front of some men that really do care, and men who actually been through it. And I'm not going to sit here and sugarcoat it. I'll tell you in a second.
Yeah. Man, good one. I ain't gonna hit too much on the I'll just throw that up there, but we ain't gonna talk about it. You know, I think you kind of just talked about it. It's just something that, it ain't necessarily a whole bunch of different reasons why it seems taboo in the black community. I don't want to dig too much on that. I'd rather go forward a little bit. So with that being said, gentlemen, do you think black men need therapy or do we just need better brotherhoods?
I think that that's one of them trick questions because I think we need both.
Okay.
I think they go hand in hand. I think one of the biggest lies that we tell and other people tell is that, and you'll hear people say, "I don't need nobody." They might not say it in Ebonics, but they'll say, "I don't need anyone." But they say, "I don't need nobody." And that's one of the biggest lies that you can tell yourself or you can hear, because when your phone don't ring, when somebody don't like something, everybody wants somebody to be able to communicate with them. That's why when you go into solitary confinement, it's the worst thing that can happen to you because it's just you and your mental, you and your mind. So we need therapy simply, if not to show us that we aren't as emotionally intelligent as we think we are. And being emotionally intelligent means that you have the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own and others' emotions. That's why when something happens, oh, I'm pulling the strap. I'm ready to fight. No, when that happens, you already understand that this person, one, has zero emotional intelligence about them because they resort to violence. They resort to physicality and not to actually think about what's going on so I can process and then make a determination of what I can do. And therapy helps you realize where you are and where you aren't. It helps you see yourself for who you truly are. And that's one of the things I think we all need, not just black men, as we say on here. I know it's directed towards us.
Yeah, so again to this question, I don't think it's a or, I think it's an and, right? Do we need better brotherhood? Absolutely. And all a lot of that stems from defining what brotherhood is all about. And for the most part, and I can't speak for you gentlemen, you tell me if what I'm saying does not fit the mold of your experience, but there was really no clear definition of brotherhood growing up. It's just that either we played together, we kicked it, whatever the case may be, and we just became friends. And some people became good friends, some people was whatever. And so even in the midst of that, like how do you deal with and I go from simple to extreme. How do you deal with, you know, leaving one area where you lost some really close friends and going to another area to where, oh, well, now you got to create new friends. Or worst case scenario, kind of like what I mentioned previously, how do you deal with a very close friend of yours committing suicide? And then asking yourself, was I not there for him? Like, did I not do enough? Like, how did I miss the signs that this young man took his own life? Stuff like that. So when you start compounding these adult, and I tend to call these adult experiences, even though they don't have an age associated with them, when you start tying these adult experiences to them and assuming that they have the tools to like overcome them and function normally, well, now you've set that child up for failure. You set that young man up for failure. And then they don't get to therapy, which helps them to rationalize how they feel or come to an understanding of how they feel and looking at their experiences and kind of, rationalizing with those as well. And so what ends up happening is that those past experiences now reveal themselves in their future unbeknownst to them. So do black men need therapy? Absolutely. Do they need better brotherhood? Absolutely. And I'm not talking about kids at that point. I'm talking about adults because most adults don't even know what brotherhood is. They're still stuck in the friendship zone.
I like both of y'all perspectives.
Can I add something to that?
Yep.
Yeah, because I think with the brotherhood portion, we we long for it, and that's the reason. Like me growing up in the city, you had teams, and then from teams you had the homies, and then from the homies you got gangs because you want brotherhood, you yearn for it, and then when you find somebody like you and y'all doing similar things, you think it is a form of brotherhood, but nobody's there to actually lead you. You have a bunch of unintelligent people that's leading the train. So where you go is what you see on TV or what you see somebody else doing down the street, and it's not to get you ahead, but it's to keep you within the sense of what we stand for. We stand for, hey, this is my block, and I do anything like that's not intelligent. If I'm doing anything for just for the block, so now I'm doing something detrimental to life. So instead of doing those things, that's why when we get from there, we go to college and what we want to do. Oh, now I'm gonna be a captain. I'm gonna get my cane. I'm gonna be a Q dog. I'm gonna get my gold boots. And you look because you're still searching and searching and searching. Even in the military, we do it. So that's one of those things. You got to find the right set of brothers that will lead you to something productive and not destructive.
Yeah, I like that, especially about the brotherhood and stuff like that. Um, here's where I'm going. First of all, I'm gonna start by saying that we all up here are a subject matter expert of our own opinions. Um, I used to be super therapy. Everybody need therapy. And I do believe in therapy. I also believe that I think at some point um we should be we for me it's more of a transition more so to coaching, right? So when I look at this, therapy is a lot of times it's starting from the past and working to where you are right now. So once you've kind of dealt with all of the hurt and all of the pain and all of the shame and all of the other stuff you've done to you've worked through all of those things, some point we got to start moving forward. So I'm more so coaching. However, comma, I think that whether that's therapy, whether that's a counselor, I do think that there needs to be a dedicated person in your life who has skills and techniques and a license or backed by something where they know how to help you through things, whether that is something in your past or whether it's something that you're trying to work through to get to something that you need to in life. So, like I said, whether that's therapist, whether that is a coach, whoever that may be, I think that we need at least have that person as kind of sort of a guiding star, along with whatever written thing we may have, like the Bible or something like that, along with our spirituality, different things like that. And I also want to highlight this, and I think it's very important that effective therapy. And I'm going to say it right now. If you have been with your therapist for 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, they probably just taking your money. At some point, that therapist, you should be able to work through those things, or that therapist says, you know what, Roland, I can't help you no more. Whatever it is we're going through, this is past my pay grade. I'm going to refer you to a colleague of mine who may deal with something more specific to your needs. No therapist, I believe, should be with somebody for that long. Now, however, if it is somebody, like I said, that one person who you may have on a payroll, who you check in with every once in a while, yada yada yada. I don't know if y'all remember the Sopranos. And whatchamacallit, he had the therapist that he checked in with all the time. He had on the payroll. Now I already know where you going, Roland. I already know where you're going. But no, not to that. But what I'm saying is that I do think that some sort of person, kind of help you, kind of talk things out is very important. And do we need I think it's both. I think it's just like you guys said, I think it's but I think the brotherhood, like you guys were talking about too, needs to be an effective brotherhood. Are we going to hold each other accountable? You know what I mean? If I'm like, hey, Roland, man, hey, I'm really trying to work on, getting drunk every weekend. Like Roland, don't be, Roland, if he part of the brotherhood, he probably shouldn't be inviting me, to the club Friday night. You know what I'm saying? Yes, at the end of the day, make my own decisions. However, if we have a brotherhood, then I will hope that the brotherhood that I'm a part of helps keep me accountable to whatever it is that I'm going through, and vice versa.
If I can just add, because I love the
Mm-hmm.
fact that you mentioned a few things there. Um, you mentioned the part about um, moving forward. At some point you got to move forward. You believe in therapy and you believe in coaching. I do as well. But here's what I would tell you: do not go to a coach if you need therapy. A good coach would tell you, say, I can't help you, need to go see a therapist. I have done that before. A good coach will do that for you because they understand that there is no moving forward if you're still trying to bring that baggage with you. So I want to add that piece as well. Also, there are situations to where you get in with a therapist or even a coach, and you've been with them so long and you can only go but so far with that person, and therefore their responsibilities at that point is to refer you to another one. And let me pass you over to Coach Martin here, because at the end of the day, I feel that we are at a point to where you're not growing and you're not necessarily putting in the efforts that you agreed to do in the beginning. So I think the best thing to do is for me to refer you to somebody else. I think all of those things are important to see, to understand. I like the fact that you brought in, if a therapist is with you for an extended period of time, they're just taking your money. That is an absolute fact. Like every no therapist or coach should create dependency. If you are becoming dependent on that person, then that person, that coach or that therapist is at fault, because at the end of the day, they're the professional and they should know what they're doing. So I just wanted to add that piece to what you were saying.
Man, you spot on with that. Roland, you got anything else you want to say about that debate? You good? Keep it moving. All right. So, folks, who was your first therapist growing up?
The super friends.
Super friends? I thought it was somebody else, but then today, as I start thinking about it again, um, it was my father, but I didn't know it then. You know, he was spitting game to me a long time ago, but it wasn't until I became an adult and I started remembering some of those conversations when I realized I was like, man, this Joker would put me on game a long time ago. He had always told us that, hey, you guys can always say anything that y'all want to say to me as long as you're respectful about it, you know? Um, so I started learning how to communicate a long time ago, but I didn't know it then. I didn't know it until I became an adult. So I would say that my first therapist that I can remember was probably my father.
I think I'll say first my grandmother, because she used to not only drop jewels on me, but she would hold me accountable. But when I was older and I was a teenager out here doing a bunch of crazy mess, I had Mr. Wilson. Mr. Wilson, everybody called him Dad. Uh, he was one of them. He was old school, and he had been through life, been there, done that, and now he wasn't doing a lot of that. All he was doing, he run a little numbers here and there, but he would sit down and, like you said, he would give you game. He would talk to you, and he would check on you to see how you were doing. Not just sit up there and just spit some game, because there's a lot of cats that just spit some game. Yeah, do this, that, and the other, but they aren't checking on you and your status to see whether or not you are putting that into effect in your own life.
Yeah, I mean, I was joking to Super Friends, but my first therapist growing up, I would say if I had to say one, it was my uncle Glenn during the time my grandfather passed away. Like he was the one that kind of took me under his wing and took me out of the environment and took me to his house, and he and I we just kind of talked, and we didn't really talk in detail about the situation, but he we just kind of talked so I can just calm down. It didn't remove anything. It didn't talk. We didn't talk about how I felt about it or anything of that nature. It was just he was there and tried to comfort me during that particular time. So that's why I'm kind of struggling with the first therapist aspect of it. He was there, but can I say that he performed the any duties of a therapist? No, I can't.
See, I'm with you because I think there's a difference between therapy and therapeutic. Some things are therapeutic because therapy is treatment intended to relieve or heal a disorder. Then you got to know that disorders are it's a state of confusion. When you have people that tell you to do the right thing, it's not necessarily therapy. They are advising, they are maybe even counseling, but I think my first therapist was when I had to go to anger management because this person was trained in this and trained in the psychological aspects of what I was going through. So I think that's where the therapist comes
Yeah. I can get behind all of that stuff, man. I just thought it may be a good question to throw out there. Cause you know what I'm saying? Cause I think a lot of people think that, just be honest. A lot of times, Big Mama is the therapist. Let's be honest. A lot of time, Big Mama get all everybody's problems. Every time something going on in the family, who we go to. A lot of times, people go to Big Mama. So for a lot of people, Big Mama is their first therapist. And sometimes she don't
Mm,
always give good advice.
yeah, that's kind of like
All therapists don't give
yeah,
good
no,
advice.
no, no. Big Mama gave you the advice that she wish somebody gave her. That doesn't even make any sense.
Mhm. Yeah.
in. And think about it,
Um,
when we had therapy sessions back in the day.
mm,
Somebody go buy a bottle or something, and we got some cups, might have some cups. And we consider that therapy because everybody's sitting around talking about nothing, lying and telling their lies and, spilling their guts right there. But that's not necessarily therapy because that's destructive in nature because it brings you to that point where you say, man, I feel good in this place, but I'm not going to be removed from my environment, my disorder. I'm going to go right back to it. I'm going to wake up and it's going to be right there because I still don't know how to deal with it. So it wasn't therapeutic. It was just relieving the pain for a minute.
okay, okay, smart guy, since you wanna go there. Since you want to be ahead of the game, that's what I'm talking about. One thing that seems like self-care, but is actually destructive.
Hmm.
You was on it, bro. You segue right into this freaking question.
You already know. It, it's a lot of things that are destructive, and any type of vice that you where you need something to relieve a pain, that's a vice. That's something that's destructive and or can become destructive because a lot of people it's the same way why I won't take opioids. I won't take opioids because in the medical field I've seen too many people take opioids and then develop a dependency. When you develop that dependency for a person, for a bottle, for some smoke or whatever, now that thing has become destructive and not productive because it's not alleviating the pain long term, but what it's doing is masking the symptoms. But when you wake up, when you finish with it, it's still right there, and you still got to deal with it. You never dealt with the issue.
But some people say, like some people smoke cigarettes, right? But they're like, boy, if I don't have my cigarette, you better not be around me. I need my cigarette. It's my self-care.
And they need that to mask how they truly feel or what they're really going through, not to relieve it, but they mask it so it makes them palatable to the average person.
I got a different one.
Uh-oh.
Shop therapy.
No,
Shop
man, you got
there.
to keep moving, keep moving.
No, man.
No,
No,
man,
man.
keep
Oh,
moving.
you didn't hit you didn't hit in Rollins. You didn't hit on
Yeah.
Rollins.
I,
Oh man.
I get it. Not just roller. Listen, shop therapy.
Mm.
When you are shopping because you feeling some type of way, and so the way that you make yourself feel better is to go out there and spend some money on some stuff that you want because you think buying that stuff is going to make you feel better, whatever the case may be. No, that stuff that is a destructive behavior because in all actuality you did not plan to make this purchase. You're probably pulling from some excess, and maybe you have the excess to pull from. But at the end of the day, that should just reveal to you that you don't necessarily have a plan for that excess. And because it is excess sitting in a particular area, it's not necessarily keeping up with inflation. So that is more revealing of a thing that you've never done. But then we get to the point to where we plan to do it anyway. So we'll leave it there for the sake of easy reach back. Another easy one to go with is, when we eat, what do you call it? Comfort foods. We eat comfort foods because we're feeling in our, we're in our feelings. Like you see on the movies, you have somebody sit down because they just went through a breakup, and they eat a whole bucket of ice cream because they're in their feelings. Like all of that is destructive behavior. I get it. Some people don't agree. That's all right. Subject matter expert of my own perspective.
Oh man. Social media is one. People that sit there and scroll all day. Oh, I'm just relaxing. For 7 hours, like you got calluses on your thumbs. You've been scrolling so much. You the last 3 hours you didn't have your phone plugged up while you sitting there scrolling. Um, I,
You said that, and I got people that will call me. You ain't seen what I sent you? Like, no, I ain't on there all
No.
day. And then I had to go on there. You done sent me 15 things, 15 memes, and like, okay, yeah,
yeah, I
that's
think
not.
social media is one, man. I think sometimes people say, I'm just self-care, it's my break. I've been working hard for the last 5 hours. It's my 30 minutes. I just want to sit here and scroll social media. And I'm not saying that it can't be self-care, but I think, like you said, when you're avoiding doing tasks and different things like that, you're supposed to be doing something else and you scrolling or you avoiding something. I think that's when it starts crossing the line over into being self-destructive. Man, you guys okay with some scenarios? Let's do a scenario. Mm. Since we talking about men tonight, and I ain't trying to step on no toes, but let's just go there, right? I've been in a froggy mood all day. Check out my social media page. They've been never mind. So you're having a rough day, but don't want to talk, fellas. What's your go? What's your go-to escape? How do you get away from the madness?
We being for real. You want
Yeah,
you want
man.
you want the truth, right?
or you can speak on somebody else's truth.
Nah,
You don't want to put your business out there.
I think that when people in life getting on my nerves, uh, I go out back and I have a cigar. You know, I'm just sitting by myself so I can wind down. That that's because I don't want to do anything too destructive. And I don't want to react, and I want to be by myself. So yeah, I just
I would say for me, and I'm going to sound very clichéish when I say this. I go to work. I take my phone and I put it on silent, and I go put it someplace where I don't even have to hear from it. And then I do something that I know that I need to do anyway. So I go to work. I hate to say it that way, but again, that kind of goes back to what I was saying previously, right? That's what men do. When men get upset and men get hurt, whatever the case may be, they go do something, right? So that's what I do. I go to work.
For me, I don't really have like a rough day. I may have a rough moment in the day. Um, but I may have a day that's very exhausting to where when I come home, I don't want to talk. I just don't want to be bothered. For me, it's coming in my office and just chilling and doing nothing. Like a couple of times I've came in here and I've just sat on the couch and not have the TV on, not be on the phone, and just sit here and just do nothing, just be in the moment, just enjoy the fact that I don't have anything to do pressing right now. The fact that my wife is okay with me. Um, I don't want to make it seem like she has to prove it or anything, but I have a relationship where it's okay for us to go to our separate corners and have our space without it being something behind it. You know, um, I get to come in here and, maybe the dog will come in here and lay down beside me or something like that. Maybe I sit in the floor, maybe, but for me, it's just doing nothing. It's coming in here in my office and not doing nothing for a few minutes. Um, and then going back to my life. I don't like to spend too much time in it. I like to go through it. I like to give it some time. I like to reflect on it. And then kind of, move forward with the day because life is short and I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on a day or the rough patches that I had, in my life today. I want to move forward. I want to go back to hanging out, go back to playing with my RC cars, going back to planning episodes with Coach and rolling or whatever, playing Xbox, doing something different, doing that versus dealing and dwelling on the roughness that I had throughout the day. So that's kind of what I do.
Della say she turned on Mahalia Jackson and get in the spirit. Yeah, and music is one of those things. Like I'm a lover of music, so and I'm not. I think I'm at a space now in life where when you say a bad day, that's a stretch for me.
Yeah.
I may have a moment,
Mm-hmm.
but after that, it's like it ain't that bad. It ain't that serious. Like okay. I'm like,
Why? What? 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 What changed for you to whereas now at some point you did and now you don't, where you be like, oh man, I had a bad day, man, this didn't happen. He's like, man, there's something small, and now same situation, you look at it, you be like, man, that's that little bit of thing that ain't nothing. So like, what do you think changed, or why is it that now you can see that thing, and you don't allow that thing to take away your whole day anymore?
5 heart attacks. 5 heart attacks said, dog, that little stuff you want to argue about ain't important. Life is important. So now it's like, why don't complain about this? Why? Okay, if we have cool, give me a hug. I don't care because I think there are more important things to do with your time. Because when time is cut, I can't do anything about it. So I got to do something with the time that I have. So that changed my whole outlook. When I was laying in the bed and all I could do was raise my arm, I look down, I see chest open. Like, nah, I got to change some things. And my whole perspective changed because it's like it forced me into, like people say, you can't be always positive. Say what you want. I may not all, I have moments, but I'm always trying to be positive. I got to.
Yeah, I agree. I don't have that experience, but I think I learned years ago that there isn't really no such thing as a bad day. It's just there's a moment in time, and if you isolate that event and do some reflection on that event, then that should help you put that event into its proper place and perspective, and then you can continue to move on with the day without relating that event to the entirety of your day. And I think just being able to hear that and practice that was the thing for me. So yeah, I'm with you. Like I don't believe that there are bad days. I just believe that there are moments that people exacerbate throughout the entirety of the day because they hold on to it and they continue to like replay the event throughout the entirety of the day. So I can't say that there was a particular moment. I do know that it was taught to me at a young age, young adult age, and it was something I kept practicing. And trust me, I had to because there are some people that know you that know just the right buttons to push. And if you allow them, trust me, it'll wreck your whole day. So it's just, and it's because of the person, right? Not so much as the thing that actually happened. It's because of the person. Like you know me, but then you want to go that route, and you know, okay, yeah, we just gonna put this aside right now.
I push Shell's buttons. Oh man, I'm probably pushing them now by just making that comment. She's probably all flustered right now. Hey baby, flustered. Let's move right along. Um, here's a good one. Again, at the end of the day, we are subject matter experts of our own opinion. So, scenario, your woman says, "You don't open up to me enough." How do you respond? 'Cause this is something that most men have heard. Uh-oh, coach got his hand up.
I got some questions
Got some questions.
because this leaves some questions for me, right? Number one, when did you determine I didn't open up to you, and who defines enough? Right? That's the big thing for me. Like, what made you believe I didn't open up, and what is the determination of enough? Like, is there something more in detail that you're looking for? Were you watching your favorite TV show again, and you seen McDreamy do it, and now you want me to do what McDreamy do on TV? Like, I'm trying to understand where does this enough thing come from? So that's where I'm gonna start at because that's the question I asked. Because there is no response until I get that understanding. Like, how did you come to this type of understanding? How did you come to, oh, you don't open up enough to me? What did me opening up to you look like before this conversation? Am I doing it differently now than what I was doing prior to? So it's a lot of things that we got to unpack in this question that I got it, I hear it, but we got to have a talk.
Me and Coach analytical. So when you ask a question like that, I'm not putting the blame on you, but I'm not the one with a problem. You got a problem, but you pushing it off on something that I'm not doing or doing because of some perception that you have. So now we got to get to the root of it. Now, don't make me the problem because I'm not doing what you expect me to do. Like Coach said, you've been watching TV and you're not getting this, or you've been listening to these people. So what you talking about first? Because you just say I'm not opening up. What are you saying? Because I'm not crying on your shoulder, ain't gonna happen. Because I'm not, it's certain things that you got to know who you're with, and when you know their character, you know who they are. So if you're expecting that person to be like somebody else, because well, why you don't do what Mr. Johnson? I'm not Mr. Johnson. So as long as I'm not being destructive towards you, it's something that you can talk about what you're talking about, but don't sit up there and put it off on me as it's a lack on my part.
Yeah, I get it. I get all of that stuff.
Pastor said,
Oh,
my bad. I'm sorry. I just want to be messy for a little bit. Just that much.
Go live with Pastor.
talking about starting an argument in the home. Bring up pastor or another man said, "Whoo."
Bring
If
up
you all,
Pastor. Bring up Pastor, your daddy, and I'm gonna give both of them a phone call and tell them to come get your stuff.
what about coach?
Who? Don't
Coach,
bring up. Don't say what Coach said. Hopefully, you and your significant others listen to Coach. So you ain't got to tell your significant other what Coach said. He heard me.
so somebody at home right now had an argument last week talking about, well, coach said last week on Hearts of Men that blah 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 blah.
Hey man, let's all do a 3-way. We gonna do
Yeah, there you go.
that.
Don't put me out there. Yeah, you don't open up to me enough. Like my thing is, what's enough? Why do you think that I'm not opening up to you enough? Maybe I ain't got nothing to open up to you about. Maybe when I opened up to you before in the past, you used it against me, and now I don't want to open up to you anymore. Like, what's the reason why I don't want to open up to you?
See, and that's when we as people want other people to communicate to us like we communicate.
Yeah.
So if I feel a certain way, well, I wanted you to come to me like this. That's not how I do. And well, you didn't tell me about this. I don't come whining about everything that happens in my life. I just let it go. So why didn't you tell? What do I want to tell you for? I let it go. You want me to keep rehashing it and that's the difference. When my experience, at least I say that my experience, when women come home, they gonna tell what Sally did and what she said to such and yada yada yada. Men go, it was all right. Because they let it go. We're not holding it.
I ain't holding none of that stuff in. Not at all. Where we at?
Wait a minute. Wait a
Oh,
minute.
we're going back.
Yeah, you just can't say that and not say nothing else. What does that mean? And remember, you got an honest broker in the chat. So what that mean when you say you ain't holding none of that stuff in no more?
Who, me?
Yeah, you. You just said it.
Look.
And you better not say it was that mule, Paul, next week. No.
I'm gonna move to the next question. Hey, look, this show over in 27 minutes. Hey, where we at? What question? How do we balance vulnerability with maintaining our identity as men? We a lot of times, often we hear people telling men that we should be more vulnerable. Well, maybe I don't want to be vulnerable. Maybe I'm not the person who wants to be vulnerable. Maybe I am. But how do we balance that vulnerability with maintaining our identity as men?
By recognizing that vulnerability and masculinity is not separate. That's for starters. By secondly, also recognizing that instead of trying to tell me how to be vulnerable, maybe you need to look at me and see what vulnerable to me looks like. Also, at the end of the day, just because vulnerability looks a particular way to you, you don't want me to mirror that level of vulnerability, because next thing you know, we're going to be in the bathroom sharing beauty secrets. So I think we need to really understand collectively when we say a thing, whether it's vulnerability, whether it's transparency, whether it's honesty, we need to understand that all things weren't created equal. And understanding the individual and understanding what vulnerability looks like to them, being open and honest enough to appreciate the fact that they are vulnerable, whatever that looks like, maybe that's enough. Maybe it's just that, when we look at it, maybe we just have an expectation of what that should look like for men, as opposed to understanding what men say vulnerability look like for us. Right. So when it comes down to balancing, I think the balancing isn't between the identity of a man and vulnerability. I think the balancing act comes between what vulnerability looks like for men and what vulnerability looks like for women. That's the balancing act. And I'm not saying balance as in scale to where it has to be equal, just understanding what it looks like and being appreciative once you observe it.
Yeah, because I don't think you can separate them. If you're a man, you're a man. if you're a vulnerable man, okay. And I think when, like for me, when I'm open and honest with you, that's a vulnerability to me because I can sit up and lie and to save face and so you won't be on my nerves and all that other stuff. But when I'm open and honest with you, I'm straight up with you. Now it's like, okay, I'm being as vulnerable as I get because if you want, like, stop expecting for men to be as sensitive to things as you or emotional as things as you. When you have a man and he's direct and he's honest and he's open, that's vulnerable because he's telling you everything. He's telling you his plans. He's telling you where he's trying to go. And if you aren't for him, you can deter what he's trying to do. So his mission is first. And when he has that mission, hey, if he's keeping you involved in it, he's vulnerable. And it's not like you can be less than a man being vulnerable. I think what it looks like to people sometimes may seem, oh, well, he was in a vulnerable state. Uh, mm, I think he was in an emotional state, and that made him vulnerable to judgment. But what we're speaking on and being like masculine, no, his masculinity was never in question when he's vulnerable.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if I'm going to be repeating the same thing that you guys were kind of sort of you guys were talking about. It's like, when I'm looking at this question, I'm looking at, once a man gets to a certain level in his life, he understands that he's a man and you can't knock him off his square. He understands the power of vulnerability. You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily, I think at some point, he understands that a certain level of it is okay. He understands that he can't go too far, can't say too much. There's a happy there's a happy medium in there when it comes to sharing, but maintaining our identity as men, I think that once you get to a certain level where you really understand that you are a man and you know where you're coming from, um, the issue of vulnerability is no longer there, but that's just my 2 cents. Mm. Question. Miss Nodella Jordan, thank you for the question. We appreciate the question. So, can or is vulnerability connected to being unhealed in an area? Gentlemen?
So the easy answer is yes, right? But the more detailed answer behind this is what is this area that this individual still needs to be healed in? And if that particular area, if they have not yet done the work there, then they won't be vulnerable in that area. But there still can be vulnerability in other areas of that individual's life. It just probably won't be in that area. So that's my initial response to this. Um, it can be connected. Well, correction. Let me back up because in the in the area of unhealing, there may be little vulnerability, but not the depth and breadth of vulnerability that that person will share in other areas. They may reveal some things, but trust and believe until they believe that this person is in there for the long haul, that they can share some things that they may not have shared with other people, specifics and details in this particular area. You won't get that level of vulnerability in that area. You'll still get it over here, right? So it's more so not whether or not it is, it's the depth of vulnerability that you're getting. Like if a person has some scars from, childhood trauma, well, anytime that you start getting close to that, they're going to start being very skeptical about revealing the details about their childhood and upbringing and things of that nature, simply because they do not know whether or not you're that person that they can deem to be trustworthy with that level of exposure. So that would be my answer to this.
I'm online with Coach because if you have an unhealed area or an area that you are trying to protect, you have to trust the person with that. And if you haven't built up that trust equity, no, I don't trust you like that. And that's one of those things. If you're asking that question as a person, you already know the answer. You just want me to tell you why. Instead of going directly to that, you want to know why I hold you at bay when it comes to this thing, because I don't necessarily trust that you won't damage, you won't hurt, you won't expose. So I keep it to myself. And sometimes I can't just put it off on everybody else. Sometimes the person ain't ready. I'm not ready to expose this. When I'm ready, then it'll happen. But that's something that I have to do. That's why we're talking about therapy tonight. I may need some therapy to manage this so that I can release this to where we can actually dialogue about it.
Well, you guys said it all, so I don't need to add anything to it. So, Miss Nodella Jordan, I appreciate that question. Hold on, I had another question in there too. How do most men feel about women being intrusive and asking unwanted questions?
Unwanted questions. I think we just talk differently. And I think mature men, I'm man here. Mature men know how to put things in their place. Because when it comes to asking questions, like I always tell people, I don't care who it is, if you're going to ask me a question, don't ask me a question to drive all the way around the corner just to get next door. Let's get next door. Don't ask me 50 questions if you want to know this. If you want to know this, ask me this. That way we get directly there, because men, once you start asking something that don't really have something to do with anything, we already, our wires are up and we're like, okay, what the heck she want? What was she really trying to get to? And we're not trying to bug you, but you bugging us with the questioning phase.
My Bill Cosby laugh. There are questions, and then there are setup questions, right? That's what Roland's talking about. Don't ask me a question to ask me another question, which leads to another question. Get to the point. What's the question that you really want to ask me? Because eventually, like, you can see through a setup question easily, because that's not really the question you want to ask. So what is the question that you really want to ask? That's for starters. And I'm talking about me. I'm not talking about anybody else. It irritates me to think that for you to think that I'm stupid enough that I can't see that. That's where I'm going to go with this question. So when we start looking at lines of question and being intrusive and asking unwanted questions, the question that I would consider is, why is this a need to know? This is like security clearances. What is the need to know? Like, I think sometimes people ask questions about things just because they want to be, and I'm gonna say it. I'm sorry. I'm gonna ask y'all for forget, because they nosy as hell. That's what it is. Stop being so doggone nosy. You don't need to know everything. The need to know is important. If there is no need to know, don't ask the question. And so when you ask me a question, yeah, I'm gonna check out. I'm done talking. I'm not gonna go back and forth with you because you feel you have a need to know, and I'm telling you don't need to know. That's not important. So yes, men do check out when we are being asked questions that we don't want to entertain, because there is no value in the question that is being asked. That's one of the biggest mistakes that we do. One of the biggest mistakes that we do is we have unfruitful conversations claiming that we have great relationships. You don't. You have a messy relationship that's centered around gossip. And the only thing you really want to know is something that has absolutely nothing to do with you and I. Process the question that you're asking before asking the question. When you do that, then you can qualify whether or not it's a question that will add value to the relationship or not. And that's the thing that should move you forward in asking the question. Then there will be no intrusive question. There will be no questions being asked that are unwanted, because it's all value added from that point on. Remember, help meet. Your question ain't helping me meet nothing but anger right now. Keep asking it.
My daughter did this 2 days ago. She called me and she was like, "Dad, what you doing?" I said, "Jogging." She said, "You ain't jogging." I said, "And you ain't called me to see what I was doing either. What you want?" She want a new phone. I know you want something. So you calling me, ask me what I'm doing and all that, and I know you want something. Get to the phone. She got her phone yesterday. Okay, let's get to that part because all the little pleasantries, I don't like pleasantries when they ain't going nowhere.
Hey, here's what I think about it. If you are being intrusive, then you are already coming at me sideways. You're already coming into the conversation the wrong way. So you coming in there with your unhealthy and with your unhealthiness and trying to ask questions. Say exactly what you want. Like Coach said, I'm 49 years old. You really think that I don't know what you doing? Like, come on, don't play me like that. Like I'm a whole grown man. Don't do that. So men do not like it. The men that I know, I'm being straight. We don't like it. Hey, there you go, Charlotte. She answered it for us, Charlotte Jordan. After we ask the question a lot of times, we can't handle the truth. Don't ask the question if you can't handle it. Because a lot of times, if a man is asked a question, he's going to tell you the truth. Hey, moving right along. Let me go back up to the comments. I think we had something else in there. I'm gonna do it anyway. Where'd it go? Oh, here we go. Adrian Artist. Matter of fact, his divine appointment. I think I acknowledged you. If I didn't, I apologize. I think I had the thought that I may have missed you. So again, thank you for your questions too. Adrian Artist, thank you for this comment too. Men check out of the conversation when asked questions that they don't want to answer. Yeah, because when you asking those intrusive questions, I am going to check out because I don't want to answer them. You already know you're insulting my intelligence by beating around the bush and asking me questions. So yes, men check out on conversation when asked questions they don't want to answer.
And I think
I'm speaking for me.
I think that's she. I think this person is talking about somebody they can't trust. So you dealing with an immature person, but you're expecting a mature conversation, and you already know. And that way, so it's not the person don't have a problem. The individual asking the question got a problem because you know the answer, but you just want them to say it instead of acknowledge, say, "Hey, I need to stop dealing with this person because I know this person. The next thing come out their mouth gonna be a lie, and they aren't mature enough to be in a relationship with me." But so that makes me crazy for even asking them a question.
Yeah, and what's the intent behind it? Like, are you trying to have a productive conversation to get to a solution, or you just want to, like you said, beat all the way around the bush?
This seems
when
like
you
one of
have a
them catch. I'm
conversation,
gonna catch you in the act. I'm gonna catch
yeah,
you in the lie.
yeah, trying to
And
play who got you. I don't want
yeah,
to do that. Just want to have a good conversation and let's get to the end of it or move forward or get to a solution or whatever it is that we having a conversation about. I don't want to play games. You know, you talking about you a whole grown woman, but you don't need to be playing these games then.
Can I just add one piece to this?
Add a piece to it.
Remember, we're talking about mental health. And I'm not steering clear of the statement or any of the questions. Remember, we're talking about mental health. And so a lot of the times what ends up happening, and I'm sorry, the truth don't care who tells it. A lot of the times what ends up what the problem becomes is that two mentally unhealthy people get into relationships claiming that they're looking for a healthy relationship. You cannot have a healthy relationship when you're mentally unhealthy trying to have a relationship with another person. It's just not going to happen. So if I'm having all of these intrusive, non-productive thoughts and I'm claiming that, oh, we're in a good space, you only put on a facade in public. That's it. Once you get behind closed doors, all the bickering, the back and forth, the argument, you cannot do that. So work on yourself before you try to intertwine yourself with somebody else. Because at the end of the day, trust me, your insecurities will surface in the space of relationship, and then you're going to hold somebody else responsible for it. And I'm not saying Adrian Artist, I'm not saying it's you. I'm just saying in general, right? Because I see this all the time, and I think it's like Miss Charlotte Ann says, you can't. Most people can't handle the truth. They don't want you to tell them you shouldn't be in a relationship because you got a lot of work that you need to do on self. They don't want to hear that. They want you to have the conversation with them that they want to have. Where's my husband? At the therapy office waiting on you to show up. Just, I hate to say it that way, but that's the truth. Where's my wife? At the therapy office waiting on you to show up. Do the work on yourself, then these things never become a problem. There are no intrusive conversations. There are no conversations where you want to know something, but you don't have need to know access. I'm sorry. It is what it is.
And that's where them conversations about, oh, you don't let your wife go through your phone, or you don't let your husband go through your phone. Those aren't going anywhere. You talking about with unhealthy people arguing about catching one another. That's it. Not healthy people saying, hey, where are we going? How are we moving forward? And that's what happens. You get in those type of dialogue and you find yourself in a tailspin because now you're like, man, they must not trust me, or why? Well, they must be doing something. I tell people, ain't nobody calling her phone for me. I ain't got no reason to answer.
Yeah, I get it. We are about to start winding down the show. We're about to, coming on glide path and opening up the landing gear. But before we do, all of us have family members and relatives and different things like that. And tonight's topically is specifically about Black males and their mental health. And some may say, well, what do we do? How do we help? How do we help the Black man? You know what I mean? So I got brothers, I got uncles, I got grandpas, I got sons out there, but I don't really know how to help them. So how can family members and partners support a Black man struggling with his mental health without making him feel pressured or judged? And if you are in a chat and you are a Black man, I would please like to hear your stance on this question as well, because again, tonight, that's what the topic is about, specifically for you. So a lot of times we say, well, people don't know me, people don't understand me. Well, here's your opportunity to share and share with people your perspective, and maybe someone will reach out, maybe someone will help you.
I think that in this with this question here, I'm judging. I gotta rightly judge though. I gotta rightly judge the situation, judge what this person's state of mind is, because you saying this person is struggling with his mental health. That means he has a problem. He has something that, whether it be I see him using other coping mechanisms or whatever it is, I'm judging because I'm gonna dive right in. I gotta speak to it. I'm not going around the corner. I'm going directly there and asking this person what's going on and allowing this person to communicate with me, not me communicate with them, but allow them to have access to my listening ear so that I can see what probably will be the next step that we can take to help him get some help.
Yeah, I love that response. I think, and it's going to sound cliche, and I don't mean for it to sound, so I explain it in detail. Be a support to that young man, right? And that's one of the things that I believe that we struggle with in our community, supporting. When it comes down to him struggling with his mental health, it's like, if he is going to therapy, who is going with him to therapy? Who is actually participating with him in therapy? Like, if he is married, his wife should be in therapy with him, because now she gets the privilege to learn exactly some of the things that he's been dealing with, some of the things that he's struggling with. If he is not married, he need one of those brothers to go with him, probably a close family member as well. Like, I think that's one of the things that we struggle with in our community. We want to support, but we don't necessarily know how to support. What am I going to sacrifice for the sake of this young man to help him better harmonize with some of the things that he is going through? What type of conversations are we going to have within the family dynamics after leaving the therapist's office? Understanding what actually happened in real time so that we can be a bridge to what he is doing in therapy. So there's a lot of things that we can actually do, but to do nothing is never the answer. Him going to therapy and just leaving it to him by himself is not the answer. If he got kids, trust and believe. I know, men, you don't want your child understanding or knowing something. They need to know. I'm sorry. I hate to say it that way. They need to understand some of the things that you're dealing with, some of the things that you're struggling with, because in the midst of doing it, you may have mishandled them, you may have mismanaged them, and you may have damaged them. So part of that is also inviting them in and fully apologizing because you did not know, or you probably weren't consciously aware of what you were doing because you did not understand what the root cause of the problem was. So there are so many layers to this that we can look at. If this man lives alone, what is the community's responsibility in helping that man as well? Who's going to go check on him? Who's going to go spend time with him and sit down and talk with him and understand what he is going through and dealing with and things of that nature? So I can go on and on and on about this, but at the end of the day, I go back to the notion of we're supposed to live this life from the inside out. And if we do it that way, I think that's the answer. Inside out, meaning not just only within myself being expressed on the outside, but within my family, within my household, being expressed outside the doors of my house.
Man, Nodella just said in the chat, she said, Coach, you're unloading some platinum nuggets. Y'all better grab them jokers up, man, because they've been on it tonight. My response to this is, first of all, I think, like Roland, I think he kind of alluded to this, is that you kind of got to know where you fit in with these family members at. Are you somebody who's close to this person? Or are you somebody who's on the outside of the family who really don't deal with the person with mental health? Either way, I think, like Coach said, you have to be that support. At the end of the day, whether you're really close to that person to where you can maybe go to the appointments or be part of the plan, or whether you're outside and you just are at the level to where the only thing you can do is just say, hey, look, man, if you ever need anything, I'm always here for you. I'm always here for you, and just be that support, whatever it looks like. So I think a lot of it will boil down to the relationship that you have with that Black man who is struggling with mental health. But I think just in general, ain't nothing wrong with checking in with a brother every once in a while. You know what I'm saying? Just like, I think a lot of times people take for granted, some of the things that men go through on a regular basis and some of the stuff that we put up with. So Shell tells me all the time, she's like, I didn't know men did this, or she'll see something and she'll be like, I'm glad I ain't got to do that. You know what I'm saying? So I think sometimes it's just, checking on a brother sometime, can be really good, smiling at a brother. He may not be somebody but you at work. Don't mean you got to get fresh with him or anything like that. But, sometimes a warm smile is good from anybody, versus old, nasty, crusty RBF. The people who know what that is know what that is. Um, Charmaine Rankins. The Rankins? Yeah. Thank you for this comment question. I feel like a person attachment style also plays a part. I learned I need to work on myself first. I agree 100%. Also want to shout out to all the people who have been supporting His Divine, appreciate you. Miss Novella, appreciate you. Nick D, appreciate you. Everybody else who may have, if I missed you, I apologize. You still got a couple minutes to drop some more coins in the bank if you want to. And with that being said, folks, I want to end the conversation with this. What we're going to do is we're going to do our final thought, but our final thought is going to be a question. And the question is going to be this. The question is, what's one thing you would tell your younger self about mental health? And the way we're going to go is we're going to go Mr. Roland, we're going to go Mr. Coach, and then we're going to come back around to myself. So again, for our final thought tonight, gentlemen and chat, what is one thing you tell your younger self about mental health? Let me drop this out.
One thing I would tell my younger self about mental health is that there will be stressors. You're going to go through life. Don't hold on to everything and don't bottle it up. Talk to someone. And if you're going to be a brother, be consistent. Whatever you are, be consistent in that so that you aren't wishy-washy in somebody else's life because you wouldn't want that. So when it comes to mental health, never hold on to anything. Life is too short to hold on to baggage. And if you continue to walk around with dirty diapers, you're going to smell it. So get rid of all your baggage so that you can smell the roses of life so that you can have a long and fruitful life while you're here.
I would, I kind of talked about it previously. First and foremost, I would tell my younger self to open up and talk about it. Never be shamed, never be ashamed of anything that you're going through because trust and believe that somebody else has gone through it or is currently going through it as well. And your story may be just enough for that person to open up and share their story as well. So never be ashamed of the thing that you're going through and always be willing to share it in a trusted space. Don't be afraid of therapy. Therapy is actually a good thing. Whatever stigmas we had in the past, those should be gone. We should have already worked out the kinks and got that out of the system. We should be as a community talking about therapy and talking about coaching from the perspective of getting people to the place to where they can experience the life that they've always dreamt about. You will not do that if you're holding on to past baggage. You will not do that if you're trying to drag that into new situations. And then last but not least, always never forget where you came from. But so always be willing to be that listening ear for somebody else. The same help that you need today, you will be that helper for somebody else tomorrow. So be willing to listen, be willing to escort, and be willing to participate in somebody else's developmental process.
Oh, for my final thought, what I would tell my younger self about mental health would be that it is part of life. It is something that you're going to have to deal with for your entire life. And it's chess, not checkers. Learn about it, read about it, talk to people about it. It's going to it's going to look different at different stages in your life. You know, it's something that is natural. It is something that we all have to deal with. It's all part of everybody's life. You know, your mental stability and your mental health. I remember a long time ago, my father told me that, excuse me, that your brain was the computer system that runs your entire body. So if the computer system has raggedy software or it's not running right, then everything else in the system can potentially be affected by it. So at the end of the day, we have to make sure that we take care of our mental health. And the more you learn about it, the better you get at it, then the you will reap many benefits of a good mental health life. And that is my final thought for this evening. Gentlemen, chat, this has been a great conversation. I told y'all it would be. Mental health is something that, again, everybody, it's like food, you know. It's something that we deal with or something that is part of our everyday life, you know. The way that we go into work, our mental stability, the way that we show up on job interviews, the way we show up with our peers, the way we show up as parents is all affected by our mental health. So it's very important that not only black men but everybody get a handle on their mental health. Is very important. There's numbers out there, there's hotlines out there that you can call, there's people that you can talk to about it. If you're out there and you are listening, mental health is important. And if you are somebody who needs help, please do me a favor, do all of us a favor and go out there and try to do something about it. Call somebody, reach out to somebody. And if you are a family member and you have somebody who is reaching or who is struggling with mental health, reach out to them. Tell them, hey, be nice to them. You know what I mean? See if you can, if there's anything you can do to be a supportive member in that person's life. Gentlemen, y'all got anything else before we close out? Missing anything?
I just want to second what you said. Yeah, I just want to second what you said earlier. Um, we greatly appreciate, everybody for showing up. But we also appreciate those who support the channel. Everything that you guys give us, we put it back into it. And so that's how we can continue to give you better products and things of that nature. Because we view this, I view this as a family. This is kind of like, this is a family affair, a community. And we desire to ensure that we continue to run it just as such. So again, I don't want to not address those people that Uncle Junior brought across the screen. We greatly appreciate you guys, and we greatly appreciate all those who normally give. And again, if you didn't today, that's fine. There are other opportunities. We'll be live again tomorrow morning at 10:30 with reframing the image of relationships. So we hope to see everybody there.
All right, folks. Well, I will see y'all. We will see y'all tomorrow morning. If not, we'll see y'all on Tuesday or next Friday or somewhere. Either way, check out the Empower Perspective podcast. Jump on there. You will find the links and the information somewhere. So other than that, gentlemen, Roland, you got anything for the crowd before we roll up out of here, brother? Nope. All right. Coach, you got me out.
I got you.
All right. We are out.